Hi, welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, I want to talk to you about what's happening in the Russian economy because Russia's manufacturing sector has now been in decline for 11 consecutive months. And the latest data suggests that things are not stabilizing, they're actually getting worse. The headline Purchasing Managers Index number has just come in at 48.1 for April, which is down from 48.3 in March. Now that might not sound like a big move, but anything below 50 signals contraction, and this is now the longest sustained downturn since the early stages of the war in Ukraine. And here's the key point: this isn't just a blip, this is broad-based weakness across output, new orders, exports and employment. But before we get into all of the details on that, if you enjoy these updates and want to stay ahead of what's really happening inside the Russian economy, then please hit that subscriber button. It really helps me with the algorithm and also make sure that you don't miss any future videos. Now let's get into the numbers. According to the S&P Global, factory activity in Russia continues to deteriorate, and the April report highlights a number of serious warning signs. First of all, output is falling again. That means factories are simply producing less. Fewer goods, less industrial activity, and ultimately less contribution to gross domestic product. Secondly, new orders are also declining, and this is critical because if companies aren't receiving new orders today, they won't be producing tomorrow. And perhaps most concerning of all from Russia's point of view, employment in manufacturing sector is now falling at the fastest rate in 4 years. That is a huge red flag because manufacturing isn't just about factories, it's about jobs, it's about wages, it's about local economies. When factories start cutting staff, that has a ripple effect right across the whole economy. Those workers earn less or lose their jobs entirely, they spend less in shops, restaurants and services, local businesses then see lower revenues, and that feeds into a wider economic slowdown. This is what economists call the multiplier effect. We've talked about it before, and it works in reverse just as powerfully as it does with growth. Now let's talk about demand, because this is where the impact of the sanctions is really starting to show in the Russian economy. Russia is seeing continued declines in foreign sales, which means exports are weakening. And that's not surprising. Since the invasion of Ukraine, Russia has faced extensive sanctions from Western economies. These sanctions have restricted access to key export markets, disrupted supply chains, limited access to advanced technology and machinery. And this is particularly damaging from a manufacturing point of view because manufacturing relies heavily on imported components, advanced equipment, international customers. And if you cut off those inputs and those markets, the system starts to break down. And that's exactly what we're seeing now in Russia. Now, interestingly, purchasing activity, so the buying of raw materials, is also declining, but at a slightly slower rate. That might sound like a positive, but it isn't. What it actually tells us is that companies are running down their inventories, their stock. They're using up existing stock rather than ordering new materials, which is typically a sign of weak confidence and low demand expectations. At the same time, delivery times are starting to lengthen again. Now, normally that might indicate strong demand, but in this context, it's more likely due to logistical inefficiencies, sanctions-related disruptions, and difficulties sourcing materials. And then we come to prices, because here's where the situation becomes even more problematic for Russia. Input costs are rising sharply, in fact, at the second fastest pace in over a year. And this is being driven by higher shipping costs, more expensive logistics, and rising raw material prices. Now, companies are trying to pass these costs on to customers, which means selling prices are also increasing, pushing up inflation. So you've got this toxic combination of falling demand, declining output, and rising costs. And that is a classic recipe for margin compression and profitability issues. Businesses are being squeezed from both sides. Now, there is one slightly more positive note in the report from Russia's perspective. Business confidence has ticked up to a 7-month high. But let's be clear about what that means. This isn't based on current performance, it's based on hope. Hope that export demand might improve, hope the conditions might stabilise. But hope is not a strategy. And when you look at the actual data, output is down, orders are down, employment is down. It's very difficult to see where that recovery is going to come from in the near term. Now, stepping back, why is this such a big deal? Because manufacturing is absolutely critical to Russia's economy right now. Due to sanctions, Russia has become increasingly isolated from global trade. Imports are restricted, access to foreign goods is limited, so domestic manufacturing becomes even more important. It has to fill the gaps. But if domestic manufacturing itself is contracting, then the whole system is under pressure. You've got fewer goods being produced domestically, reduced ability of imported goods, and that leads to shortages, inefficiencies, and higher prices. It also undermines Russia's ability to diversify away from energy exports, which has been a long-term strategic goal. And remember, this is now 11 consecutive months of contraction. That's not a short-term issue, that's a sustained downturn. And when you combine this with ongoing sanctions, labour shortages due to mobilisation and demographics, rising costs and weak external demand, it paints a picture of an economy that is struggling to maintain momentum. So the bottom line here is simple. Russia's manufacturing sector is shrinking. It's been shrinking for nearly a year, and the latest data suggests the situation is not improving, it's deteriorating. And because manufacturing is so closely linked to employment, incomes, and the broader economic activity, this is a major warning sign for the overall health of the Russian economy. So I'll keep you posted on any further news and developments, but hopefully you found today's video useful, informative, and most importantly, thought-provoking. If you've liked what I've said, then please give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Quick reminder, I'm currently running my competition where you can win my property or a cash alternative prize. There's a limited amount of time left on this competition now, and I'm offering some really great deals, some of the best ones that I've ever offered if you buy a ticket. So if you'd like to get involved, scan the QR code on the screen now or click the link in the description below. Once it's finished, it's finished. There won't be another chance to buy any tickets, so now's the time to do so. Thank you also to everyone that supported me in other ways. If you bought me a coffee or sent me a YouTube super thanks or signed up as a patron or a member, thank you so much for that support. Really appreciate it. Really does help to keep me going and making as many videos like this as possible. As you may have seen, I recently launched a new channel, Joe Blogs Russia, which is dedicated purely to Russian content. If you're not interested in the variety of content that I'm now posting, then that's probably the place for you to go to and subscribe and watch my future videos. But I do need your support because you have to hit various metrics from YouTube's perspective. I've already got to 1,000 subscribers, but I'd like a lot more than that. I'd like to get to 100,000. So if you could go over and subscribe to that channel, that would be great. I also need to build up some watch time. So if you could click the link at the end of today's video, it will take you straight through to one of my old videos that I've posted on that channel. So you'll be going back in time around about 4 years. You'll see what my setup was like. It was totally different background. I didn't even have a mic, so it's a trip down memory lane. You can check out some of those videos. But if you could click on the playlist and play all of the videos in the playlist, if you just put it on your desktop and let it run, or on your iPad or your phone or whatever, that would really help me to get to those numbers that I need to from YouTube's point of view. And once I get to there, I will then start posting all of my latest videos onto that Russian channel. So watch out for that happening. Also like to mention the Joe and Naz channel is now live. This is a bit of fun, a bit of variety. We're bringing food, fun, pubs and banter to YouTube. I think you'll really like it. We're mixing up a little bit of history, a little bit of fun, some food reviews, some pub reviews, a few different other things. You'll find it quite interesting, and it should hopefully put a smile on your face. So please check them out. We do need your support because we're early stages with that one too. But in the meantime, here's something to put a smile on your face.